Hi everyone, how we doing? Monday morning, 10:22 a.m. where I am. Wish I could do these earlier. I really could if I got up super duper early, but man, oh man, it is a struggle. Monday mornings, as they say. Let's jump into Twitter and see what folks are talking about right now. One of the things that jumped out when I opened Twitter and Reddit and other headline aggregators this morning was the talk about SEC Chairman Gary Gensler. He did a clip on MSNBC, and this is worth paying attention to because Gensler is the one who gets to decide a lot of what's going to happen to institutions' engagement with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency moving into the future. And he had a very interesting comment. It's something he's said before, but I don't think this is getting enough play. People are not appreciating this enough. Let's take a moment and listen to Gary Gensler. I'm going to even move my mic a little closer to my speakers so you can hear it really clearly. Here we go.
Look, this is a highly speculative asset class. We've known this for a long time. The ups and downs of this speculative asset class, Bitcoin, and hundreds of other tokens. And many of these tokens offer the investing public or the investing public is hoping, I should say, hoping for a return. Just like when they invest in other financial assets we call securities. And many of these financial assets, crypto financial assets, have the key attributes of a security. So some of them, they're under the Securities and Exchange Commission. Some, like Bitcoin, and that's the only one, Jim, I'm going to say, because I'm not going to talk about any one of these tokens, but sure, my predecessors and others have said they're a commodity. Working together, there's two great market regulators in this country. I have the honor to chair the CFTC, a terrific agency. I have the honor now to chair the Securities and Exchange Commission. A little bit different remits, a little bit different approaches, but working together with the banking regulators as well. There's work to be done there around what's called stable coins. There's a lot of work to be done to really protect the investing public.
Okay, I'm going to end it right there. He's got a lot to say, obviously, but there's one thing that stands out. Bitcoin is the only one he's willing to say as a commodity. Why does that matter? Well, if the other cryptos, all of them, including Ethereum, are securities, well, that means certain things legally, according to regulations. And it's not going to be great for those other tokens. Maybe some will succeed, right? Maybe they will be securities, and that's fine, right? We have lots of securities out there. Stocks are a security. Investments in companies are securities. But Bitcoin is the only one that is a commodity. Why is it a commodity? This is something that Michael Saylor has been going on about for ages. It had what Saylor and many others are now calling an immaculate conception, right? Created by a group of cryptographers who really were not interested in the actual monetary get-rich aspect of this. They were building a tool, a monetary instrument, and they were doing it because they felt like it should exist, that it would be good for the world. They didn't form a corporation. They didn't get investors. There are no early investors in Bitcoin in the conventional sense. There aren't VCs, right? Satoshi, the head of the whole project, the inventor of Bitcoin, disappeared, right? Amazing. This doesn't happen with other projects. It did happen with Monero, weirdly. Monero is the one that always stands out to me as like another cryptocurrency that is potentially quite special. Now, okay, I'm still a big Bitcoin guy. I'm still overwhelmingly Bitcoin, but Monero is worth the mention at the very least. Speaking of Michael Saylor, Bitcoin is a commodity, which is essential for all Treasury Reserve assets. This allows politicians, agencies, governments, and institutions to support Bitcoin as a technology and digital asset to grow the economy and extend property rights and freedom to all. Saylor is such a good evangelist for this. And evangelist is the right word. I mean, look at his profile pic, right? Come on. If that's not the halo of a patron saint, then I don't know what is. The divine laser eyes. He's a demigod in this picture. But I'm going to go along with it because I like the guy and I agree with what he says. Bitcoin is a commodity. The rest of them, overwhelmingly, There are over 20,000 other cryptos. They are probably all unregistered securities. And when Gensler and others decide to come after them, that's going to be bad for the crypto market, not Bitcoin. This is another strong evidence that Bitcoin is categorically different than everything else. And I'm not saying that securities are bad. Go ahead, buy stocks. That's great. But they are categorically different and should be treated differently. From the Bitcoin conference Twitter handle, Bitcoin hodlers be like, buy the dip or buy the top. Did you just take both pills? See, this is the thing, guys. You don't know where the bottom is. You don't know where the top is. You can play the gamble. You can try to hit the top and buy the bottom. It's incredibly hard to do because markets are, by their fundamental nature, they are unpredictable because you are trying to outsmart everybody else and everybody else is trying to outsmart you. Good luck doing that consistently. With something like Bitcoin, the thing that you can be sure about is that it is limited in supply. It has a clear track record of rising over time, right? We've reached escape velocity. We've crossed the Rubicon. We've gone to the point of no return. Bitcoin couldn't be shut down today if people tried, if governments tried. And it sounds like Gensler isn't going to try. It's the only one that is a commodity. You can buy the dip, you can buy the top, you can do both confidently knowing that given enough time, and it won't take very much, give it a couple of years, it's going to go up and you're going to be in profit. You don't even have to play the guessing game of what is the top and what is the bottom. Anybody who has held Bitcoin for 4 years is in profit. And more than likely, they're in huge profit. Their purchasing power has gone up dramatically relative to anything else they could have stored their value in. Here's another example of that. Bitcoin in 2022, it was too boring at $20. This is from the Bitcoin forums, bitcointalk.org, I believe. And this is still a very active forum today, but it is also one of the oldest and most die-hard core Bitcoin discussion forums. This is from June 28th, 2011. Both Mt. Gox and Trade Hill are way down in volume right now, and the price of Bitcoin is flat for hours. Ugh, can you believe? Flat for hours. So boring. Makes for a boring day trading. Seriously, if it's just going to hang out at $17 all day, $17. If it's just going to hang out at $17 all day, I can find better things to speculate with. Good luck, bro. Hope it worked out for you. Bitcoin in 2022, it's too boring at $20,000, right? We were moving sideways at 40. We were moving sideways at 30. We've been moving sideways at 20. And people say it's boring. They say it's dismal. They say it's going down. Zoom out, my friends. Zoom out. Let this be your morning devotional to remember the big picture of Bitcoin. It's not going away. And its importance and centrality to the world at large are only going to grow. Breaking. Insider trading by exchanges is the worst kept secret in crypto, says Chamath. This from Bitcoin Archive. I don't know where Chamath said this. Do you know Chamath? Actually, the other day in a live stream on this very channel, I could not remember Chamath's name, and I spent way too much time trying to pull it up with a bunch of dead air and me not talking in the middle of this live stream. Chamath Palihapitiya, that's a mouthful, but that's his name. Chamath Palihapitiya has had variously a lot of popularity and a lot of hate. But you got to say this about the guy. He's not dumb, and he certainly has opinions. And one thing that he has been right about for a long time is the importance of Bitcoin, and he does not hesitate to call out bad actors. This is an example of that. He reamed Wall Street hedge funds on cable news during the whole GameStop AMC thing. The short squeeze of 2021. Is that 2021 or 2020? I don't remember. But he went on cable news and basically said, Wall Street cheats. They stack the deck. They rig the game in their favor. And then people come along on Reddit and they play the game and beat Wall Street at its own game. People are freaking out. Oh no, the Wall Street people are getting beat. Woe is me. What are we ever going to do? Chamath, to his credit, said that the Redditors were doing a great job, and that the Wall Streeters were the actual Wall Street, not r/Wall Street bets. The actual Wall Street hedge funds were stacking the deck in their favor. He called out the bad actors. He's doing the same thing here. Insider trading by exchanges is the worst kept secret in crypto, says Chamath Palihapitiya, formerly of Facebook, one of their early employees, now a very wealthy investor. This is true. This is totally true. Name an exchange, and they are doing insider trading. Coinbase has been fined for this. Coinbase has been investigated for this. If you worked in an industry that was not yet thoroughly regulated, and you had access to information about like what was going to be listed on your major exchange very soon, I've talked about it on this channel before. They get investigated for this all the time. I don't really know how you prevent this other than open markets. And by open markets, I mean like a decentralized network, a decentralized exchange, where there's not a central body that decides what coin is going to go into next. This is the importance of decentralization. It levels the playing field. It eliminates, at least in theory, if done properly, it eliminates privileged positions. If you want a meritocracy, if you want fairness, decentralized exchanges, decentralized networks, that's the way to go. And I believe it is the future, right? Because people do ultimately want fairness, justice. I mean, I'm tempted to use the word equity, but I know how loaded that word can be, so I will stop shy of saying that. This is a fun one. This is a clip from the Young Turks, a longtime political YouTube channel. I've met Cenk Uygur, one of the founders of the Young Turks, before. He's not a very nice person. He is not. And I pretty universally disagree with them. They're very, at least in the American political sense, they are very progressive, liberal. And this is the talking point that gets from that camp, from the progressive liberal. This is the talking point that is used to attack Bitcoin. Let's hear what they say.
Yeah, and what's crazy is how, I mean, yay, but also how it's linked to like places like Kazakhstan, where now like 18% of the world's Bitcoin is mined since like China kicked out Bitcoin mining, and the government of Kazakhstan is facing huge protests in that country over electricity outages and shortages, and we know how much electricity it takes to mine Bitcoin. I wonder if one has to do with the other. So it's almost like this is not the currency of the future. You know how it like relies on fossil fuels and causes mayhem in second and third world countries? Anyway, yeah.
That's right. Bitcoin relies on fossil fuels, not electricity, mind you, fossil fuels, as she said. Bitcoin is responsible for chaos and mayhem in developing countries. It's riots in the street. Jeez. Every single thing you just said is wrong. It's actually impressive how wrong you are. As Dennis Porter is saying in this tweet, this is peak Bitcoin misinformation. It really is. Bitcoin doesn't rely on fossil fuels. It relies on electricity. A lot of these critics, they act like you're hooking up a diesel generator to your Bitcoin mining machine. It relies on electricity just like everything else, just like that little purple light in the background of your picture, lady. Everything relies on electricity. The internet that you're using right now relies on electricity. YouTube relies on electricity. YouTube that runs the Young Turks channel. Data centers rely on electricity. In fact, data centers broadly use a great deal more electricity than Bitcoin does. Bitcoin doesn't care where the energy is coming from. In fact, there are strong incentives to harvest energy from previously untapped places. It also creates a buyer of last resort for energy to be produced. This is a healthy stabilizing factor on the energy grid. We can do incredible things with Bitcoin. It is a stabilizing, strengthening factor for the global energy grid. But that's not what you're going to hear from critics of Bitcoin, from central planners, from people who think that you should have a group of wise overlords that take care of everything. Moving on. Breaking news. This is from June 27th, so this morning at 6:12 a.m. Breaking news. Voyager sent notice of default to Three Arrows Capital for not making payments for its 15,250 Bitcoin, about $324 million, loan. I'm sure you've heard Three Arrows Capital has been caught in this contagion of falling institutions. Three Arrows Capital is basically presumed to be bankrupt, and they're not going to pay back Voyager because they don't have the capital to pay back Voyager. So Voyager is pursuing legal action against Three Arrows Capital, and Voyager has also gotten a bailout from Alameda Research. Alameda Research, founded by Sam Bankman-Fried. Excuse me. I had to let out a little Red Bull right there. Red Bull burp. Voyager got a line of credit from Alameda Research. So did BlockFi. So Celsius is probably dead. Three Arrows Capital is dead. There's another exchange that went dead, but I'd never even heard of it before. And now BlockFi and Voyager are getting bailed out. I don't really see this as a bailout. Sam Bankman-Fried, who runs Voyager and FTX, he's not doing this because of his pure and altruistic heart. He's doing this as a hostile takeover. He's going to own those institutions and their assets. Unless, of course, Goldman Sachs buys out. Well, that's separate. They're going to buy Celsius, a distressed asset. So look at what's happening. Voyager, BlockFi, and Celsius are going to end up in the hands of Goldman Sachs and Sam Bankman-Fried. Goldman Sachs, we know, is old money, institutional. It's Wall Street, right? Like, this is who Bitcoin was invented as a protest against. If you'll recall, Bitcoin was invented in direct response to the 2008 financial collapse, wherein nobody was held responsible. The people gambling with the global economy, nobody was held responsible. And so Satoshi Nakamoto invented Bitcoin and developed it because the world needed it. Now who's going to own Celsius? Wall Street. Wall Street is going to own it. Goldman Sachs. And who's going to own Voyager and BlockFi? Sam Bankman-Fried. Sam Bankman-Fried, who is very friendly with global central planners, the World Economic Forum, and existing DC and Wall Street institutions. Yikes, you guys. If the Bitcoin maximalists were ever doubted before, all indicators seem to point in the direction that they've been right all along. That there needs to be strong decentralization. That the only way this whole cryptocurrency experiment works is if it's Bitcoin, because nobody controls Bitcoin, and if it's truly decentralized. You run your own node. You have full self-custody. If you hold it in these third parties, guess what? Central planners, would-be overlords get a hold of it. It's a honeypot for them. Bitcoin maximalists have been warning about compass mining. Now, I don't know what compass mining is, but I pulled this up because I'm curious and I need to look into it. Bitcoin maximalists have been warning about compass mining for months. Influencers like Dennis Porter, who we actually just read a Dennis Porter tweet right there. There he is. And McCormick, that's Peter McCormick, the YouTuber, or not YouTuber, the podcaster who does What Bitcoin Did, have been shilling for them. It's rug pull time. Plebs are always right. Now, I don't know if plebs are always right. Plebs, I'm sure, can be wrong. It's not like the wisdom of the crowd is infallible. But I'm curious about what he's talking about here. What is compass mining? Are they going to rug pull people? I actually think Peter McCormick is a good actor in the space. He's honest. He's straightforward. I'm not saying he's right all the time. He's not. He'd probably tell you that himself. It's interesting that the hardcore Bitcoin maximalist crowd, listen to them because there is signal in what they're saying, even if you disagree with what they're saying, and even if it's like dogmatic and in your face, and I don't know. You don't have to agree with them. You do need to hear what they're saying and consider it, because the track record shows they've been right about a lot. You don't have to like their tone. You don't have to like their dogma, but you should pay attention. You will be doing yourself a favor to pay attention to what is being said by the hardcore Bitcoin maximalists, the zealots. You don't necessarily need to join the religion of Bitcoin, but you should pay attention. And that's what I'm doing here. I need to look into what compass mining is and see what he's talking about here. It sounds like another group is about to go down because of insolvency. or rug pull. Well, I don't know. These terms get thrown around. Ponzi, rug pull. We should be a little more judicious with our language, not call things just bad sounding words because we don't like them. Words are descriptors. If you start misusing them, they stop being effective. It's like fascist or Nazi. You call somebody a fascist enough and the word's going to lose its meaning. Okay. Dan Held, he's one of these influencers that people talk about, but he is a Bitcoin maximalist as well. Bitcoin will replace gold. It's a very short tweet. It's a very interesting tweet because Bitcoin right now has a market cap of what? Under $1 trillion? $1 trillion? Let's look at Bitcoin market cap. Cryptos. 20,000 cryptos. Geez, we just crossed that number pretty recently. The entire market cap of the cryptocurrency sector is a little less than 1 trillion. So Bitcoin is far less than 1 trillion. Bitcoin dominance is at 42.4%. Some useful little statistics here at the top of CoinMarketCap. But Dan Held is saying Bitcoin is going to replace gold. Saylor also says this, that Bitcoin is like gold, but better than gold in virtually every regard. What's the market cap of gold? 11.578 trillion currently. Gold is in the process of being demonetized. We've gone 5,000 years with gold essentially being money, right? The symbol of money in any kind of graphic representation is often a bag of coins made of precious metals, primarily gold, or the symbol of a coin, or just jewels. If you cartoonishly want to represent money, oftentimes what you represent is gold. Everybody recognizes it as money and as valuable. That is being undone right now. And that's not a dig on gold. I like gold. I think gold is cool. I would like to have more gold. But frankly, I would like to have Bitcoin a lot more. Bitcoin is demonetizing gold and will replace it. And as Saylor said back here, if gold is a commodity, like gold, but it's better than gold, this allows politicians, agencies, governments, and institutions to support Bitcoin as a technology and digital asset to grow the economy and extend property rights and freedom to all. I believe that sovereign nations are going to start buying Bitcoin en masse. They will be left with no other choices, even if they don't like it. These institutions are not ideologues. They don't operate on principles of what's right and wrong. They operate on principles of what works for me right now. And eventually Bitcoin is going to be the thing that works for them. It already is. And a lot of those institutions are probably quietly buying right now because they have no incentive whatsoever to blab to the whole world that they're already buying up Bitcoin. They're probably really happy about these low prices. 20,000? Great. Let's buy as much as we humanly can. Let's do it quietly across different wallets so other people don't know. I believe governments are already doing that. That's my crazy conspiracy theory based on nothing but the logic. Time will tell if I am wrong or if I am a prophet. We need to do a whole video on the Howey test. Have you heard of the Howey test? Are you familiar with this? When Gensler says that Bitcoin is the only one I'm willing to say is a commodity, the rest of them are securities, what he's talking about is the Howey test. The Howey test refers to the U.S. Supreme Court case of determining whether a transaction qualifies as an investment contract and therefore would be considered a security and subject to disclosure and registration requirements under the Securities Act of 1933 and the Securities Exchange Act of 1934. Unreal that we're operating on such old rules from the early 30s, but that is the world we live in today. Laws don't change very quickly. The Howey test determines the Supreme Court established 4 criteria to determine whether an investment contract exists. An investment contract is an investment of money in a common enterprise with the expectation of profit to be derived from the effort of others. And if you pass the Howey test, that means that you are a security, that your asset is a security and not a commodity. Gold is a commodity. There's no group that completely controls the price of gold. It exists all over the world. Anyone can find gold. It immediately has value. There isn't a central body that decides, that brought gold into existence, that marketed and peddled gold to the whole world. It just is. Bitcoin is like that. It just is. Immaculate conception. Everything else, likely a security, likely passes the Howey test and therefore is a security and will be regulated as such. Plan B, famous for his stock to flow model, now basically debunked. The stock to flow model was interesting to me for a long time. I had a very smart friend who was always skeptical of it. It appears that he was right. But it's not to say that he's without insight. He's talking about the US dollar here. When money is politicized and weaponized, like fiat US dollars and euros, it loses its monetary function. It becomes harder to use politicized and weaponized money for trade, business, and investment because it is tracked, seized, and debased. Start using Bitcoin for trade, business, and investment. He's right. And we see this happening right now with the sanctions against Russia. And in fact, Russian oligarchs' assets being seized, something that didn't even happen during World War II, right? The actual Nazis didn't face this kind of lockdown from other governments. If you were a private citizen, your private wealth was probably left privately. That doesn't happen anymore. This is basically economic warfare. And if you politicize your money, then your enemies, your political enemies, will stop using it. And in fact, people who are kind of on the sidelines will probably stop using it because they're afraid of how you will weaponize it against them. And in fact, maybe some of your own people. I'm an American. I use US dollars most of the time, but I get skittish about the US dollar, largely because of inflation, but also because politicization, right? If the US government is going to politicize the US dollar against Russians, they will absolutely politicize it and use it against Americans. As soon as there is a US-based, a US dollar-based central bank digital currency, believe me, trust me, they will use that to control American citizens as well. They'll use it to control everybody. This is money as a weapon, right? You have politicized and weaponized your money, and people aren't going to like that, so they're going to stop using it. Start using Bitcoin for trade, business, and investment. I like this. We need a cyclical Bitcoin economy where we store Bitcoin, we use Bitcoin, we trade Bitcoin, where it becomes an actual unit of account. I don't know when that tipping point will happen, but it will happen. This is a great speech from Steve Jobs. I love repurposing when people repurpose these old clips and say, here's something that somebody said about Bitcoin in the 80s or the 90s or whenever. You'll understand what I mean. Let me play the clip for you.
Yes, sir.
Steve, what do we do about the press? I mean, the Wall Street Journal reporters get up in the morning, sell Apple short, and then go write stories about us. And it's clear that it's a perception versus reality problem.
Yeah.
They don't know shit about operating systems. They don't know anything about tools. They don't know what's going on in the future. They don't know that we're building icebergs, and you build them from the bottom up.
Sure. I'm sure that a lot of you have had this experience where you're changing, you're growing as a person, and people tend to treat you like you were 18 months ago. And it's really frustrating sometimes when you're growing up and you're becoming more capable and you've solved, maybe you had some personality quirks you've kind of gotten over, whatever it may be. And people still treat you like you were a year to 18 months ago. It can be very frustrating. Well, it's the same with a company. It's the same with the press. The press is going to have a lag time. And the best thing that we can do about the press is to embrace them, do the best we can to educate them about the strategy, but to keep our eye on the prize. And that is turning out some great products, communicating directly with our customers as best we can, getting the community of people that are going to make this stuff successful like yourselves in the loop so you know everything, and just marching forward one foot in front of the other. And the press will take care of it. It's like the stock price. The press and the stock price will take care of themselves. By the end of this year, it's going to look quite different. And when you get, I'm like an old man now in this industry, and I've seen the ups and downs. And when you see enough of them, you know that's going to happen. So when you get up in the morning and the press is selling Apple short, go out and buy some shares. That's what I would do. That's what I have done.
Bravo, Steve. The same thing is true of Bitcoin. We're going to continually have the press just dogging on Bitcoin, talking about how it's boiling the oceans, talking about how it's just the rich getting richer, talking about how every conceivable criticism, Many and most of them don't make any sense at all. They are, in fact, counterfactual. They're 180 degrees from how things actually work. Ignore that noise. Educate yourself on the actual topic. And when it's down, buy some more. That's what we got today, team. I got to run. Here's one more reminder. Celsius, bankruptcy coming. BlockFi and Voyager, emergency loans. Nexo, rumors swirling. Please be very careful if you have funds in any of these platforms. A few years ago when I had my Bitcoin and I was looking for some kind of return on it, yield, I used all of these. I had money in Celsius. I've talked about that before. I thankfully got it out before they locked up withdrawals. I had money in BlockFi. I had a lot of money in Voyager. I've used all of these. And thankfully, I've gotten it all out now. And I don't use them anymore. And I don't even recommend them. And yikes, that's probably going to come back to bite me because these are the people who sponsor YouTube channels. But whatever, I got to be real. I do not recommend using these centralized services. What you have to do, what you ultimately need to do, educate yourself on self-custody and hold your own coins. You can do that securely. You can do that safely. And there's nothing else that will compare to that. The marginal return, the 5%, 6% that you might get from holding it in a centralized service, not worth the risk. I used to see Bitcoin maximalists talking about how the vast majority of coins that would be on centralized services will never get off of those services. The depositors will never see their deposits returned. And I thought that was crazy. It does not sound crazy now. We've seen it already start. All right, that's what I got today. It's been fun. Let me know what you want to talk about in the future. I've got a long list of videos that we need to do a real scripted, produced video on rather than a live stream. But, you know, there's always more to cover than I've got time to cover. Let me know what you think we should prioritize and discuss in the future. Leave it in the comments, and we will hit it in a future video. Thanks, team.